Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Let's get to it.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
Shaking and baking right here on the neophyte.
U.S. trying to close the show. She was doing a great job of feeding that. It's over.
Coming up, so KP, don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?
Game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Okay, that felt a lot better. That felt good. You know, the win on Friday didn't feel good. Obviously, if you've listened to the show by now, you know that. That one felt a lot better because it was more of a complete game, but you saw things that I've been asking the Knicks to show all year, you know, and we're going to get into those themes in this episode. But first of all, it's always nice to beat that team. It's nice to beat the Jersey Nets. It's better to beat them twice. I can't stand that team. I can't stand that. You know, I just can't stand anything about the Nets. Here in Jersey, we don't even acknowledge them. Like, everybody I run into is a Knicks fan if they're a basketball fan. There aren't many basketball fans in my area, but those who are usually Knicks fans. All my buddies growing up have been Knicks fans. The six remaining Nets fans are all probably, I don't know, no more than 18 years old. So it's always nice to beat them and to troll them on Twitter. It's hard to sweep a team, you know, so fuck Brooklyn, fuck the Nets. It's nice to be back over 500, you know. If you care, the Knicks are currently in fourth place. So this was a good win. You got a big first half from Josh Hart, which I thought was huge. Helped propel the Knicks and get them confidence for that second half. He finishes the game with 28 and 8, so another near triple-double. You know, the Knicks were pushing the pace a little more. Third quarter, they pulled away a little bit. Towns had a big-time start to the period. But then Brooklyn makes it close again. But by the fourth quarter, about midway through, the Knicks officially pulled away. And they win this game 114-104 over the Nets. Towns had a big night. We will talk about it. Same with Mikal Bridges. We'll talk about that. OG Anunoby, 24 more points, playing some more good defense. The scoring has been the big surprise this year. He's scoring a lot more. He's a lot more aggressive. It's at all three levels where he's putting the ball in the bucket. So it's another win where the Knicks did it without Brunson. You know, he had 10 assists, but he only scored 12 points. He struggled once again from three. He's been bad this year. Let's just put it bluntly. He's not been very good. So he needs to figure his shit out ASAP, or else this team's going nowhere. But it's nice to see them win a couple games now with Brunson being so lackluster. So a 114-104 win. And you go to the other side of the floor, and that's kind of where I want to start, man. The Knicks flashing a little bit of a different coverage. You know, a little different coverages in this game. Brooklyn scores 122 points on them on Friday. You know, Cam Thomas drops 43. And that's why I came on the show, and you just kind of in a down mode despite the win, a down mood despite the win, because it just continued to be a big issue. But you saw Tom Thibodeau adjust a little bit last night, and he gave a little different coverage out there. You know, Cam Thomas, a couple baskets early on, he switches the assignment and puts Anunoby on him. But overall, the theme last night to me was the defensive adjustments by going to a little more blitzing, a lot of blitzing last night off the screen, some switching, but it was less drop coverage, you know. And as we've discussed, the problem with the Knicks playing in drop this year has been, you know, Cat at the 5, you know, with Mikal Bridges, a lot of the time it's him struggling at the point of attack, and that leaves Towns to guard 2. And so now you're forced to overhelp and rotate off the corners, and you're kind of in a blender. But the Knicks last night, a lot more switching, and a lot of times where they would send 2 off the ball screen. So I thought that was an important adjustment in this game. So I took down a couple notes here on my doc. In the first quarter, 4-minute mark, you get a Cam Thomas, Noah Clowney pick and roll. Jericho Sims switches onto Cam Thomas with OG Anunoby kind of caught on the screen and at Thomas's hips. Sims switches onto Thomas, makes a good contest, and forces a miss. First quarter, about 20 seconds left, Dennis Schroeder, Jalen Wilson pick and roll. Pacome Dadier, who got minutes in this game, switches onto Schroeder with Mikal out of the action as Wilson fades to the weak side. Dadier gets beat, but he does a nice job of not giving up on the play, and he makes a strong contest from behind to force the miss. Second quarter, 10 minutes and change. You get another Jalen Wilson ball screen. Dadier switches onto Wilson this time with Payne going to Williams. And I thought Dadier in this possession just did a tremendous job staying in front of Williams and contesting the miss out of 12-foot jumper. Really good possession. Breen was impressed. Second quarter with about a minute and change left, you get kind of a Cam Johnson DHO. Brunson gets screened out of the action by Cam Johnson, so Mikal switches to Schroeder, and he blocks Schroeder's shot on the 3-point line. Fourth quarter, couple possessions here with 7 minutes and change. You get a Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson pick and roll, and the Knicks do a very nice job getting the ball out of Cam Thomas's hands. You got Anunoby and Bridges who immediately bring the blitz to Cam Thomas. That forces a kick out to Johnson, who fades to the top of the key. And now Johnson drives and misses a shot at the basket. I think Sims puts a strong contest on it. That worked in the Knicks' favor. 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You have Jericho Sims guarding Dennis Schroeder in space. He stays in front of him for a few seconds. Then he gets beat, but he still stays with the play, and he ends up blocking the ball out of bounds with his left hand as Schroeder goes up with the right. So that's all. That's what it's about. That's what it's going to be about. If this team wants to go anywhere, it's going to have to be Thibodeau being more willing to be flexible with his coverages. It's just about giving the offense different looks and not just defaulting to a drop or playing it straight up all the time, especially when you've got the personnel, right? When you've got switchable personnel with wingspan and guys with quick feet and some guys with both, right? Anunoby, Bridges, Hart, Sims, Payne, even Dadier and Huck Porty. Towns has the wingspan. The Knicks really, they can and they should switch all on ball screens that are excluding Jalen Brunson. Honestly, been saying this all year. But I will say, for the record, I thought Mikal Bridges did a much better job getting over the top of screens last night and lately, so I'll give him that. But yeah, it's, you know, with a performance like that defensively, it shows you, like, this team can switch it. I still would like to see them switch much more heavy in the future as opposed to just going to a drop. Like, even, you know, even at times when they went to a blitz, last night, there were still instances where they got beat. Because when you blitz, the problem is you risk getting beat on the roll off the screen. You risk having to be put into rotation on the back line. So there were some moments last night where they were beat off of blitzes in non-switch situations. Third quarter, 8 minutes and change left. Cam Thomas gets that 4-point play because you got Anunoby struggling to get over the top of the Simmons screen. Now Cat's forced to come up aggressively from the high drop and close out to Cam Thomas. He ends up fouling him. So in that scenario, if you simply switch it, it's much easier to stay in front. Now you got wingspan on Thomas with Towns, and Anunoby simply switches out of the action. So that and a few other instances where the Knicks just got stuck at the hips of the guard because they didn't switch. And also you had, just some nitpicks like both Friday and yesterday where the Knicks just have to make sure when they do hedge that it's a hard hedge. Because there were a few times where the Knicks let Cam Thomas beat them around the edges because they weren't forcing a retreat. And you had that, we talked about it a little bit on Friday with Huck Porty in the second half defensively. But you saw some of it early on last night with Jericho Sims. Towns has this issue. He just needs to be more aggressive when he does come up to the level, because the whole point of bringing a blitz or a hedge is to make the pocket pass more difficult and to force a reset in late clock isolation against one of your better wing defenders. So you make this tweak and you won't have to rely on the weak side rotation where you leave an open shooter. But overall, I really like the adjustment last night on this Brooklyn team who plays small. So you got to give them credit. And again, credit to Mikal Bridges. I'll say it again. I thought Bridges played a very good game. Defensively, he's looking a lot better lately. Fighting through screens more. Playing the pass lanes, right? The first possession of the game, I believe it was, he jumps the gap for a steal and slam. Right? He's staying in front of the ball handler, making sound closeouts, some solid one-on-one defense. He did a very nice job, I thought, staying in front of Cam Thomas in that transition play in the third quarter, which eventually led to the Towns block. Just using his wingspan to contest the pull-up jumper. He spent a lot of time on Cam Johnson and Dennis Schroeder, and both of them went scoreless on him when they were guarded by Mikal. Overall, Brooklyn players went 2 for 13, 15% on Mikal with only 6 points. So hopefully the defense is coming along, and the offense, which I guess I'm a little less concerned about. 3 consecutive games with 20 plus, 4 consecutive where you shot over 50%. Last night, 21 points, 6 rebounds, and assist, steal, block. Shoots 9 for 18 from the floor. A couple transition threes in the first half, but he really continues to dominate the mid-range game. That's his home. It's that mid-range area. Middle of the second quarter, Towns sets an off-ball screen to get Mikal coming off it and going downhill for a jumper. A few minutes later, Brunson gets blitzed off the Jericho Sims screen on the right wing. Mikal flashes to the nail from the weak side. Brunson finds him for the open jumper. Late fourth quarter, Mikal slips a screen and pick and roll with Brunson for another jumper at the nail. Just taking care of that mid-range area. It's got a high release point, so it's hard to block that shot. Doing a lot offensively right now, using screens a lot, whether it's him screening and slipping into space or using a teammate's screen off the ball. Driving closeouts, in the first game of the series, he got a lot of three-pointers off movement. I feel like last night, a couple spot-ups where Josh Hart found him. So I liked what I saw from Mikal Bridges, and I continue to have some more optimism with him going forward. However, I thought the best Knick was Karl-Anthony Towns.
Bing bang.
Towns now 5-game balls tied with Brunson for the most among the starters. 26 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. He shoots 10 for 16, 1 for 3 from 3, and he's 5 out of 5 at the line last night. Big time third quarter again to help the Knicks extend the lead. And this was a very important performance with Brunson being as bad as he was last night. Brooklyn did a nice job adjusting on Brunson after Friday, putting more wingspan on him, and just the ball denial was excellent. So this time Towns went off, and instead it was, Towns, and he got some help from the Knick wings. Brooklyn is a small team, and they're very switch heavy. So Towns was dominating any switch or any mismatch he found, but he also didn't force it, offensively, because he didn't have 5 fouls, which is an issue. But I like that he took advantage of those switches, and when I mean he didn't force it, like he was punishing switches with his passing too, and that's a very promising sign because, as we've discussed on the pod this year, the Knick offense has struggled against defenses that have the personnel and defenses that switch heavy, because they do a lot of matchup hunting, and that slows things down, and it makes you much more predictable because they only have to do one thing, the defense. But last night, it was a lot of Towns as that playmaking hub up top, right? Finding back cutters and hitting guys off movement. And that forces a switch defense to make a ton of decisions that you don't have to make when the offense is just mismatch hunting. Towns' first assist of the night, he finds a cutting on Anunoby from the high post. His second assist, he's double teamed up top and he finds Anunoby in the dunker spot. His third assist, he finds Anunoby on a weak side cut after Brooklyn screws up an off ball switch. His fourth assist of the night, then you saw the Knicks run that ATO set that they used to spam with Hartenstein and Quickly. Brooklyn switches the handoff, and Simmons gives Brunson too much room on the pull-up. Early third quarter, he almost had an assist where Finney-Smith, I think, thought it was going to be a switch, so that leaves Anunoby open on the back cut. Towns finds him. Unfortunately, OG smokes the layup. But his final assist of the night, Towns, where it's I think it was a Miami action between him and Brunson. I forget which action it is, but it's when you DHO into pick and roll. Brooklyn switches it, so Brunson creates space on the baseline for an open short mid-range jumper. So taking advantage of a switch everything, that was something I noted, and that's going to be a big theme going forward with this Knick offense. Can they sustain success against non-traditional defenses, against defenses that don't just default to a drop coverage? So I loved that ability to punish the switch. Speaking of switching, Jericho Sims. I thought he was great in that aspect. Whenever he's out, listen, I think Jericho's been fine this year. Because of his lateral quickness, he can guard a guard. You saw him defending Schroeder in space. That's going to be an important thing going forward with Towns on the bench, and as long as Precious and Mitch are out, having Jericho showing what he can do these last couple nights when switching on the smalls, hopefully influences Thibs to go, more to a switch. And I thought Jericho did a nice job of that, man. He's, dare I say, impressing me a little bit? I don't know. So good for Sims. And that's really all we got. We're going to head to break, get back, and then talk a little bit about what's coming up next with this Knicks team. And then after that, we'll get to break, come back, and wrap it up with our trivia question. So stay with us. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
Hey there, thanks for listening in so far. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much. You can follow us on social media as well. On Instagram, we're at BD4Pod and at Rob J. Bong. On X, we're at BD4Pod and at RJCBD4. And on Facebook, we're BD4. If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page. Just like on the podcast, we cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
Okay, welcome back to episode 746 of the podcast. The Knicks win 114-104 against the Jersey Nets. And now they have the second of a back-to-back here coming up tonight. 7:30 game, I believe. Last game of the homestand, hosting the Washington Wizards, who are not a good basketball team. So the Knicks have to beat this Wizards team, and if they do so, then they have themselves a 3-1 trip at the Garden before they head out to the West Coast. And they will be partaking in their first West Coast trip of the season in a time where they need wins. So this is the big test for them. They've got, after Washington tonight, Phoenix on Wednesday, Utah on Saturday, Denver next Monday, Dallas next Wednesday, and then they go back to the East Coast, but in Charlotte next Friday. That's a cup game. So they're not back home until December 1st. So the rest of this month, after tonight, they're out west, pretty much. So that's going to be a test, but you have to focus on tonight first. Beat this terrible Wizards team, and all of a sudden, you're 8-6 with 3 out of 4, going out west. You're playing a Suns team that is dealing with some injuries. Durant, and I don't know if the Nuggets have found a rhythm yet this year. Last time I checked, they were struggling a little bit, but it's an important trip coming up for the Knicks. They have to start winning games, so hopefully they build on what they got this past weekend against the Nets, and we'll see. So they need Brunson to figure his shit out. That's where it starts. The captain's got to be the best. So we're going to head to our final break, get back, wrap it up with our trivia question as soon as we return. Stay with us here. Be back in a minute. Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born.
Thanks for listening to BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA, Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 746 of the podcast. The Knicks defeat the bum Nets again at the Garden, 114 and 104. They dominate this Nets team. I'll give you that. It's fun. It's a nice change after not so long ago. The Nets were this super team, and now this team is nothing but scraps, and they have some promise, but that team sucks. The Knicks, meanwhile, have the pieces to get it done, but I need to see a lot more consistency. I need to see the defense continue to sustain what they showed. Continue to sustain. I need to see the defense sustain this throughout the entire year. You know, I need to see some more performances like I saw last night. So, we'll see. With that said, folks, let's wrap it up with our trivia question. And then that'll be that. Quick episode. Not much to talk about against the Nets. They suck. So, let's wrap it up here. All right. So for this episode, our question of the day. Karl-Anthony Towns now holds the Knick franchise record for three-pointers made by a center with 31 in 12 games. Who held the record before? All right. Karl-Anthony Towns now holds the Knick franchise record for three-pointers made by a center with 31 in 12 games. Who held the record before? That is pretty funny how it's gone that long. I mean, it's been that easy for Towns to do it in 12 games. It just goes to show what we've had at center the last number of years. It's so nice to have a spacing big on this team, man. You know, somebody who can just open up the paint for Brunson, somebody who can kick the ball to and get a big time three. And he shoots with range, man. Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice to have a weapon there. Somebody who punishes switches. And good Christ, man. Thank God we have Towns. I'm sorry. I liked Hartenstein. I liked Robinson. But having a starting center in 2024 that can space and shoot, it just feels like that's a must in this Eastern Conference. You know, if they want any chance to overpower Boston, that felt like a must. So obviously you got to figure out these issues with him at the 5, defensively, drop coverage, but you know, you just hope that can be all put together by the end of the year. So folks, I'll stop rambling, and that's all we got for this show. So thank you, and I'll see you soon. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you, and we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees, and go Knicks!